Hi, folks. So you know, we're heading towards the Taurus full moon eclipse in about, what is it, the 20th today, so around the 28th or so, so in about a week's time. And what I want to do in the next 3 videos, this video and 2 more videos before I get to that eclipse video, is I want to go through transits related to the signs of Virgo, Libra, and Scorpio. When it comes to the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, and the new moons that are coming up, and indeed the full moon that is coming up, these 4 planets or so and some of the lunations are going to form in these 3 houses. We've already had a new moon in Virgo. We've already had our new moon solar eclipse in Libra. That takes us to an eclipse cycle that, at least if you're looking for the corresponding lunar eclipse, takes us to March 24th of next year, although these eclipses on the Libra-Aries axis continue into 2025. But then in the middle of November, we're going to have the new moon in Scorpio. What is more important and relevant also at this point in time is that when we look ahead to that eclipse in a week's time, we've got 3 planets in Scorpio opposing the moon. We're going to have Mercury, Mars, and the Sun close together opposing the moon. And Mercury, Mars, and the Sun are going to be in the sign of Scorpio. So I thought, and these planets, Venus and Virgo, Mercury and the Sun for a very short time, but then soon Venus and Libra. And of course, we're in the new moon cycle in Libra. And currently Mars, but soon the Sun and Mercury in Scorpio, are all making important transits at around as we head towards this eclipse, whether they are oppositions, whether they are trines or squares. So let's dive into it. Now, this particular video is the Virgo video, and it's going to feel very familiar because just recently we've talked about Venus in Virgo. I did 1 video, but it had to be split into 2 because it got interrupted. So I just did the video a couple of videos ago, a lengthier video about Venus's transit through Virgo. But I want to summarize before we head to, as we proceed towards this eclipse, I want to summarize what to look out for. So take it as a reminder. Take it as a reminder. The first thing that I want to state is that as Venus moves through Virgo, she will oppose Saturn. She already has actually opposed Saturn in Pisces. She's getting ready to trine Jupiter in Taurus. She will then trine Uranus in Taurus. She will then oppose Neptune in Pisces. And then as she gets ready to move into Libra, she will trine Pluto in Capricorn. So that's 5 planets that she's going to be in conversation with. 3 of these transits are technically harmonious and creating a certain amount of flow in conversation and supporting each other. And 2 of them require an integration of energies and a certain type of protection. And when we look ahead to the eclipse, the Venus trine Pluto is still far enough from the eclipse, and even though Venus opposing Neptune is not an aspect that I am considering as hugely important to the eclipse, I will grudgingly accept that it might be, because all the planets, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, the new moon we had in Virgo in the middle of September, all have made these same transits, the trines to Uranus and Jupiter and Pluto, and the oppositions to Neptune and Saturn. But some of them, in terms of the lunations, like the new moon in Virgo that we had in the middle of September, was very much in conversation with. You know, it trined Uranus and Taurus, but it also opposed Neptune. So the opposition to Neptune as we head towards the eclipse and the full moon is on the 28th of October, and the opposition to Neptune, Venus's opposition to Neptune, occurs Let me give you the exact date for that. Bear with me for a second, please. I've been sort of going through my thoughts for this video, and everything is a little bit all over the place as I was making these notes. Venus's opposition to Neptune is on November the 3rd, so 5 days later. So for me, it's just a little bit, but it's really not. We should address it and we should talk about it. So the first thing to note is that as Venus goes through the rest of the Virgo transit, she will trine Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus, oppose Neptune now. She already opposed Saturn on the day she entered Virgo on October the 9th. And then trine Pluto in Capricorn. Now, the first of these aspects that is still pending is coming up tomorrow or on the 22nd, depending on where you live. And that is the trine to Jupiter. And I would encourage you to think about Venus trine Jupiter. Now, when we have planets trining, when we have planets aspecting each other in the sky, they create portals and gateways for everybody, depending on where these signs sit in your chart that are being transited and what houses they occupy. I don't know that they are necessarily more important than any aspects that are being made to your natal planets. So if Venus is transiting through Virgo and Venus is aspecting planetary placements in your natal chart, let's say you have a Sun in Virgo, let's say you have Saturn in Taurus, let's say you have Jupiter in Pisces, let's say you have I don't know, Mars in Capricorn or something like that at the time of your birth, then those transits are also going to, those are in a certain sense the important transits, and these generic transits, for lack of a better word, the transits that are happening in the skies at any particular time, provide flows of energy, but you can't ignore what transits are being made to the natal planets in your birth chart. So if you know your chart, keep an eye out for that too. Take a look at this Venus transit in Virgo, and from there, see what planets are being conjuncted, what planets in your natal chart are being squared, what planets are being trined, what planets are being opposed. And by planets, I include things like the North Node, or the South Node, or the Moon, which is not technically a planet, as we know, or Chiron. So those are all that I want to give you that caveat. Jupiter, as we've discussed multiple times on this on this channel, is, if I were to summarize it briefly, or if I was to put it in a sentence, is ending a 12-13-year cycle and starting a 12-13-year cycle in the Taurus part of your chart, the house that is occupied by the sign of Taurus and what that house stands for. Venus is in Virgo. And you had a number of, during the Mercury retrograde from August 23rd to September 15th, the one transit Mercury made 3 times was it trined Jupiter. Direct, retrograde, direct. As we head towards the eclipse on the 28th, we have to go back and look at the week of August 28th, before and after. And it's possible that something came up around that time that felt expansive, but perhaps premature. Perhaps even, if I were to use this word, which I'd say it's sort of triggering, so forgive me, abortive, for lack of a better word. What I mean by that is, the week before August the 28th is the week when Mercury went retrograde. And as I've mentioned to you before, Mercury retrograde, the higher, for me, inescapably more and more, the higher meaning of Mercury retrograde is the revelation of something or some things that are in our blind spot as we move forward with our plans and our assumptions and our mental processing of what is going on and our execution. So it's likely or possible, as you look back to the week before and after August the 28th, that something came up, or something may even have started, that you have to keep in mind as we head towards the eclipse. But also understand that sometimes things that occur while Mercury is retrograde, by the time Mercury goes direct or after, it may not, everything is not what it seems. So even if the impulse, so you've got to look at what came up during that time as a possible direction to move in. But when you look at the execution of that direction between September 23rd and, August 23rd and September 15th while Mercury was in retrograde. And especially as Mercury was going direct around September 15th, you've got to take into account that while the direction may still be a portal or a portent or a sign of where it is that you need to go or where you need to be headed, around those 3 weeks as you headed to the middle of September, it's possible or likely that may have felt a little bit like a false start, or like there was still information that needed to be accumulated. And as a friendly reminder, since we're talking about the sign of Virgo, the new moon in Virgo occurred on the 14th of September, and Mercury went direct on the 15th. So as we discussed again in our previous videos, the entire sort of lunar period between September 14th and October 14th, before we had the new moon in Libra, had a kind of feeling of lack of flow, a kind of static quality, because that entire lunar period was ruled by and disposited by a stationary Mercury. So all these planets have been trining and trying to support Jupiter create a new beginning in the Taurus part of the chart. A lot of these trines that have happened from the sign of Virgo occurred while Jupiter was direct. So as we went through the months of July and August, a number of these trines happened with Mars and even Mercury, and then September the 4th, Jupiter went retrograde. So till September the 4th, these trines may have had, again, as we look even at the weeks before and after August the 28th, a sense of forward movement, a sense of this is where the change is, this is where we need to go. But since September the 4th, the trines that have been happening almost have a sense of, well, that still may be the direction but till the end of the year now that Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter made one push, it's now retrograde, and it's going to make its final push to create this new beginning in the Taurus part of your chart by May of next year, between December 31st of this year and May of next year. While Jupiter is retrograde right now, these trines may be supporting what needs to be done behind the scenes based on where you know you need to go, so that after Jupiter goes direct, you can move forward in that direction with greater confidence and with greater ease and with greater flow. Now, as I've mentioned to you, if you have Jupiter retrograde in your birth chart, then it's possible that these trines are much more effective in bringing manifestations. A Venus trine Jupiter, would be Venus conjunct Jupiter, Venus trine Jupiter. I mean, these are considered in mundane Western astrology massively fortunate transits. And look both to, so when we are looking at the Venus trine Jupiter transit, and as we head towards October the 31st and Venus trines Uranus, there are two things I want you to look at. Number one, actually three things I want you to look at. Number one, I want you to pay attention to opportunities of things that get started around this time. Interviews, for example, submissions to things. What is starting? What is blessed by a Venus trine Jupiter transit? So today is the 20th. Tomorrow Venus trines Jupiter. You can look back over the past 5 days or so and just kind of make a mental note of where's this going? What is it that is beginning under its influence? Because sometimes when these transits happen, we expect culminations. We expect offers. We expect things to come through. We expect those kinds of developments. But I want to remind you that often it is the things that begin that we need to look at when they begin, and what are some of the advantageous or transits that are trying to create ease for everybody around this time. Now, that's the first thing. Second thing, and this may be even more relevant to those people who have Jupiter direct in their birth chart, has something come through financially, relationship-wise, relationship developments, financial developments, in such a way that they might even be related to Venus's retrograde in Leo from July 23rd to September the 4th. Relationship lessons. As you move forward now with Venus, and as you take those lessons with regard to how you need to manage your finances with an eye towards where you want to go. Conserving resources, managing your savings, making sure that your money and your financial life is working for you and supporting you, as opposed to you working to support your expenses and your lifestyle in such a way that it is not contributing to where it is that you need to go. Also, by the same token, the Venus retrograde transit, whether in Leo or anywhere else, is going to force us to ask the question, what do we know of our relationships, and which relationships are serving us and which relationships are not? Which relationships are helpful and which relationships are not? And resolve to separate the wheat from the chaff and figure out who's going to be in the boat with us as we move towards the direction and whatever it is that we value. So, as Venus trines Jupiter, retrograde Jupiter, the second thing to ask is, has something come in the last 4 or 5 days that either financially or relationship-wise is going to prove to be a blessing or is going to aid the Jupiter retrograde transit in Taurus? For those people who have Jupiter direct in our birth charts, the question is it going to help us and aid us in the completing the behind-the-scenes activity that we need to complete in order to move in the direction that Jupiter has laid out from us between May and September 4th of 2023, and will continue to create that beginning for us, that ending of a 12-13-year cycle in Taurus and the start of a 12-13-year cycle of greater alignment in the Taurus part of our chart. And we'll start to create that one more time, December 31st of this year to May of next year. So is it a financial windfall? Is it a gain? Is it something that was related to the new moon in Virgo, or something that came around that time that is being gifted or provided to you, or as the payment that come through? From a relationship perspective, other relationship related developments that you can look at to see that you can have conversations around, or clarifying conversations around. I'm not, by all means, seek to see with Venus trining Jupiter whether you can build bridges as opposed to burn them. But if there are relationships that seem problematic to you or complicated to you, or don't seem entirely clear, or seem a little bit murky, or seem a little bit problematic, you can choose to have conversations that are pleasant and clarifying. But in the process, I think you'll have a sense of, especially as we head towards the eclipse and into early November, of, is this with me? Is this not? So the first thing we're looking at is, over the last 5 days, are there any opportunities or anything that has started around this time, even if it's just a seed being planted? Even if it's as simple as making a submission to something online, even if it's something as mentioning or hearing about a project at work that you want to put yourself in for, even if it is meeting someone online, I'm thinking about different particular arenas, even if even if it's news of some kind, what is that? The second is, has something come in from a Venus perspective in terms of either clarifying or building bridges or getting clarity on relationships or finances or financial windfall? Or if you don't want to look at it as a windfall, it could just be a payment you're waiting on, or greater financial flow, or greater flow of any kind in the sign of Virgo, considering that, till October 14th, it was so static in the sign of Virgo, considering that new moon that we had. There were new beginnings and things moving, but it was unlikely that anything that came through after that new moon in Virgo would have a lot of speed around it. And also, remember one thing, projects and things that start while Mercury is retrograde, by the time Mercury goes direct, can look different. Because all of a sudden people realize things, and the plans that they made while Mercury was retrograde and they introduced something or chose to look for something, chose to do something, after Mercury is direct, they may be like, well, you know what? We thought it was going to be this, but now it's going to be this. And so things have to be adjusted. For those people who have Jupiter retrograde in your birth chart, the question, of course, the 2B, 2A is for people who have Jupiter direct in their birth chart, is it aiding something? Have you received something that actually helps you do the behind the scenes maneuvering that you need to, either financially or relationship wise, so that by the time you get past December 31st, and now that you know which direction Jupiter is trying to move you in, Jupiter tried to make that clear between May and September of this year, and it's going to start that process again December 31st to May of next year. Has that come in for you? 2B would be for people who have Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart, has something come in for you that is helping you manifest something that actually, as I've mentioned to you before, people who have Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart, when Jupiter is retrograde, is when things happen, when things land, when things fall into place, when things actually start to show up. So as Venus trines Jupiter, we've looked at number one, what has been beginning over the past 5 days or so. We've looked at number two, things coming in that are either manifesting things for people with Jupiter retrograde in the birth chart, or assisting in behind the scenes preparation to continue to move forward in the way Jupiter wants to move forward in Taurus and create a new beginning or end a 12-13 year cycle in Taurus. And the third thing is, as you head towards, tomorrow, day after, does something culminate? Does something come through that feels like a Venus trine Jupiter thing? I think that is going to be much more true for people who have Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart than those who have Jupiter direct. For people who have Jupiter direct in their birth chart, I think that the important thing is to look at number 1 and 2A. 2B and 3 is really for people who have Jupiter retrograde in their birth chart, which is about a third of the population, because if you're going to just look at it, it's a third of the time every year that Jupiter is retrograde. So it could be a considerable number of us. Remember one thing with Jupiter. When every 12-13 years, it goes through the same sign every 12-13 years, it is basically asking, are you in alignment with where you need to be in that part of your chart? It may create endings to help you move towards alignment and may give you a lucky break, but that lucky break may feel like an ending that is stressful, a layoff, the ending of something that is keeping you trapped. But then it is also up to us to determine where we want to align. So if we are already in alignment, Jupiter transits elevate us to the next stage of that journey. So if you are a painter, and being a painter is in alignment with what you need to be, if you are a computer scientist, if you are an executive, if you are a politician, and it is in alignment with your destiny, your purpose, your calling, a Jupiter transit is going to try to elevate that for you, take things to the next level. So you can think back to the Taurus part of your chart and the 12-13 year cycle that occurred in about 2011, 2012, and 2011, and determine that if you're on the right path, what is going on this year and the early part of next year that is ending now that 12-13 year cycle that started at that time and moving it to the next level. If you feel like you are somehow not doing what you should be doing in the Taurus part of your chart, if you're not in alignment, understand that what Jupiter is likely going to try and do is end what is keeping you trapped, and is going to, as I've said before on this channel, remove the old couch and create the space for the new couch. But we, when it comes to Jupiter and Saturn, have to work in partnership with those planets. Jupiter is not like Pluto or Uranus or Neptune, where it will just do what it needs to do and eradicate things, and we have no choice but to submit. With Jupiter and Saturn, these are co-creative energies. And so with that break being created, with the couch being removed, the question then falls upon us to say, am I going to use this as an opportunity to bring the right couch in, or am I going to continue down the path that is not in alignment, but use this as a way to elevate or escalate myself even if I'm on the wrong path? Jupiter will still help you with that. It's still trying to give you that lucky break. It's rare for me to see Jupiter act in the way conventional Western astrology says it will, which is to give you tons and tons of bounty. Jupiter, for me, is a planet that is about the idea of an auspicious new beginning. involves endings. Venus, I find, gives those mundane blessings, financial blessings, and all that kind of stuff. And as I said, the Virgo part of our chart should be seeing more flow now that we are into the new moon in Libra, which is ruled by Venus, and that Venus and Mercury are in mutual reception at the time of that new moon, Mercury in Libra, Venus in Virgo. There should be greater flow in the Venus part of our chart moving forward, which is nice, with the Virgo part of our chart. And Venus in Virgo is certainly going to try and bring those culminations, those blessings, those financial opportunities, those relationship opportunities, and try to create more and more flow. And again, because we go into the Venus trine Neptune tomorrow, what is it supporting? As you head towards October 31st, remember when Venus trines Uranus, Uranus is trying to make the Taurus part of our chart more authentic to us. Nobody's path is the same. What is the right path for you? Who are you in the Taurus part of your chart in the most authentic way, in the most authentic, exciting capacity? And often with a planet like Uranus, it is your own way. So it will buck convention, or it will buck the traditional or conventional way of doing things. So again, if we look at a painter example, and the thing to do to be a painter is to go to this art school, I don't know, I'm making this up, or do it. Uranus may, if this applies to someone, it may be like, well, what is your path? If you're a physician, if you are whatever, it may say, what is going to be your contribution? What is truest to you? And so as Venus heads towards October 31st, and Uranus also is retrograde. So whether you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart or direct in your birth chart, again, you're going to have to just think about what is it that is starting as you head towards October 31st, what is coming in financially or relationship-wise as an opportunity relationship-wise to either build bridges or to make Venusians silent, knowing how getting clarity around whether certain relationships stay or whether they may not be right for us. And in that process, by knowing that something is not right for us, we create room for what might be right for us. But with Venus, don't discount the ability, perhaps, to at least try to achieve mutual understanding. One of the nice things about Venus is that under Venus's influence, even if you're going to break up with somebody eventually, you're at least able to have a conversation in such a way that there's some understanding or some conversation on this is where I'm coming from, and this is what's actually going on. Venus may give you the ability to connect, even if the outcome is not signing a contract. It may actually create a sturdy foundation, whether two people or two entities move forward in a contractual way or not. And that way they can continue to be in each other's lives in a way that is still supportive, where the understanding is built. So Venus trines Jupiter tomorrow. As we head towards the 31st, Venus trines Uranus. And so with the Venus trine Uranus, there could be, again, opportunities and culminations. What is beginning over the next week and a half? Do you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart, or do you have it direct? If you have Uranus retrograde, is it actually culminating or bringing you something that is actually going to make you more authentic in that part of the chart? If you have Uranus direct, are you somehow incorporating, while Uranus was direct in its last go around, are you incorporating and thinking about and processing what this authentic direction is for you? And whatever it is that Venus is bringing or starting or creating, is it going to help you and assist you and support you in this integration of where it is that you need to go in order to be your most authentic self in the Taurus part of your chart? And remember, it's Venus in Virgo supporting Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. So know where the Virgo part of your chart is, what it stands for, because that is where the blessings and support will come from towards the Taurus part of your chart. Now, let's talk about, and let me also cover, Venus goes into Libra on November the 8th, and before it does so, it's going to trine Pluto. So remember, we've talked about the fact that the Virgo Capricorn and Taurus parts of our chart. Capricorn is in, Pluto is in Capricorn, are supporting each other. So the Venus trines to Jupiter and Uranus and the trine to Pluto are all part of this, looking at the Taurus part of the chart and helping it grow and expand and authenticate for us in the right direction. Now, in the middle of this all, as you head towards November the 3rd, when Venus opposes Neptune, you have got to keep an eye out for any energies that are deceptive, that could create loss, that could, whatever bounty Venus is bringing in, whatever opportunities are being created by this Earth sign triangle in the signs of Capricorn, Pluto completing its transit in Capricorn. We've talked about that on this channel, how that is our top priority by the end of this year, and for the couple of months at the second half of next year when Pluto will be in Capricorn, finishing up a transit that it started in 2008. What has it been trying to transform in the Capricorn part of your chart? We're going to help finish that. And these trines are going to help support that. So whatever this transformation is in the Capricorn part of the chart, in the Taurus part of the chart, supported by the transits in the Virgo part of our chart, whatever it is that is coming in, we're talking about Virgo now, we're talking about Venus now. So we're directly talking about relationships and money. And when it opposes Neptune in Pisces, you've got to consider two things. Number one, you've got to, simply put, protect your resources, what you value, what is valuable to you, your values, and the relationships that are valuable to you. As all this sifting and opportunities and beginnings and which relationships are with me or not, how am I managing my resources, you need to put your arms around whatever it is that you value, and especially keep an eye on your purse or your bank account or your finances or your dollar bills or your bills and your coins and the relationships that are important to you. And if there have been trends and energies in the Pisces part of the chart that have been gaslighting, deceptive, creating a leak, creating loss, you need to protect yourself from that. And by now, the good news is you truly have, remember, the Sun, Mercury, Mars, the new moon in Virgo, have all been giving you signs as to where some of this may be occurring. You're going to have to be a little careful to really make sure that you are clear about what is happening or what is not. And that is where Venus now going through Virgo will help you try to build bridges and have conversations with people so that you can kindly and in a Venusian way state your case in a way that is trusting and builds trust to the best of your ability. I know what they're doing with that friggin' car, sorry. It's so interesting how when you're doing a reading, any ambient noise, you're in such a space that any ambient noise can just, it's just the most fascinating thing, because ambient noises that on a normal perspective are not going to bother you at all of a sudden just, they sound so loud. Keep an eye out for the Pisces part of our chart has been dealing with crises, as I said, especially that have made themselves clear in 2014, 15, and 16, particularly as you headed towards 2016. You know what some of these are. The problem with Neptune is that it's very hard to pin things, a little bit like Jello to a wall. But just keep an eye out on things. And you've had enough signs, and you may even have had and incurred a certain amount of loss, actually, in August, September, when these planets, all these other planets were opposing Neptune. So just know that you need to protect your resources and not go through that same process. Now, as we head towards the eclipse, even though I will stubbornly maintain, and I'm wrong about this, that the Venus opposition Neptune is not necessarily, it's too far from my perspective in those 5 odd days after the eclipse, there's a possibility or a chance that if as part of the eclipse there are decisions to protect or remove yourself from certain entities or make certain changes or have a full moon moment in Taurus, the nice thing is that the transit that is really going to be present for the eclipse on the 28th is going to be Venus trining Uranus, because that happens on the 31st. That is close enough. So as you head towards the 28th, some opportunity, something may start to come through with regard to integration, and you may, with regard to either availing of an opportunity, starting an opportunity that is authentic for you and moves you forward with this authentication process in the Taurus part of your chart that Uranus is trying to create, particularly if you have Uranus retrograde in your birth chart, or if you have Uranus direct in your birth chart, may help facilitate the integration and the processing of, while Uranus was direct this last time, what it's been trying to tell you about what is right for you, the right path for you. And there have been a ton of trines, and even while Venus was retrograde in Leo, she made 3 squares with Jupiter in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus. There's been a lot of conversation with planets as they transited through Leo and Virgo recently, being in conversation with the Jupiter and Uranus part of our chart. And let me tell you, it is not stopping, because as the planets enter the sign of Scorpio, Mars has already entered the sign of Scorpio, Mercury enters tomorrow or day after, the Sun is going to enter in a few days. These planets are then going to oppose Jupiter. And it's all eyes on Taurus and Jupiter in Taurus and Uranus in Taurus. All these planets are like, let's shake things up to, and some of these shakeups when it comes to the oppositions from this is why I'm doing 3 videos before I get to the eclipse. Virgo today, Libra, and then Scorpio before we talk about the eclipse. Because by the time we get to the eclipse, you can't ignore the fact that the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are opposing the full moon eclipse in Taurus. And so with that opposition, again, you have to support. So as you head towards the eclipse, Venus will be trining Uranus, and more opportunities and blessings may be on their way, either to help you integrate how you can continue to be more authentic in the Taurus part of your chart, or actually to manifest something. But you have absolutely got to keep an eye out for any leaks, because someone may be on boundaries, my darlings, boundaries. Walk, as I've heard someone else on YouTube and in different channels give this expression, walk softly, carry a big stick. Boundaries. Now, do not go about hitting people, please. Do not, that's not what I am saying, physically or in any way. It's not about hurting. It's about ensuring that the buck stops with you. Even if there are partnerships or contracts where other people may be getting your money before you do, or there are ways in which things, the buck still stops with you. You can still be engaged in conversation over the next week, 10 days, especially the next week, to say, this is what my expectations are. There's still the opportunity to put things in writing. Do not do anything with big sticks, literally. The buck stops with you. So protect what is being created so that that loss is not. And by now, you know what to look out for. There have been too many transits that have opposed Neptune, and the Neptune transit in Pisces and the loss that it's been trying to create there. Now, you know, if some of this, if the Neptune transit in Pisces, based on where Pisces is in your chart, is encouraging greater inspiration, greater creative or artistic output or creativity, greater spiritual, renunciatory activity, then the Venus transit may actually support that. But don't renounce things or lose things if that is not the goal or that is not the aim. Final thing about the transits in Virgo, which will end, the Venus will end its transit on November the 8th. But as I mentioned in my last video and I mentioned before, the other thing that is going on in Virgo is, give me one sec, is that starting September the 6th, we had the Mercury cycle in Virgo begin. That continues till December 22nd. We already had one milestone on September the 15th when Mercury went direct. We've had a second milestone yesterday when the Sun and Mercury conjuncted in Libra. We're going to have a third milestone on December the 13th when Mercury goes retrograde in Capricorn, and the cycle will end and a Capricorn cycle will begin on December 22nd, a Mercury cycle. So I want you to be clear that the Virgo part of the chart, insofar as you are trying to use mercurial, what is the word? Tools. Insofar as you're trying to harness the use of Mercury, insofar as you are serving Mercury and Mercury serving you to build and grow something related to the Virgo part of your chart, that continues till December 22nd. And you are in this third phase now starting yesterday to December 15th. But as I said in my last video, till December the 10th, implement and see the results of it. Implement, implement, implement. So the Virgo part of the chart, Virgo season in the way that I describe Virgo seasons ends November 8th from my perspective. You can have, and we indeed have right now, as far as I'm concerned, Virgo season is active and Libra season is active and Scorpio season is active. Based on conventional Western astrology, we're in Libra season for a few days. In a couple of days, Scorpio season will begin because it's defined by where the Sun is. From my perspective, as I said to you on this channel before, I look at where Mercury, the Sun, and Venus are and when the new moon occurs. And if Mars is close to the Sun as it is right now, I look at Mars. And while these transits are clearing a certain part of the chart, I still consider that season active. Venus season, for all intents and purposes, Virgo season, forgive me, for all intents and purposes, for me, ends on November the 8th, because Venus is still there. There's still creation and manifestation and gifts and financial and relationship opportunities occurring in the Virgo part of the chart that are significant, that play a significant role in when we come to the eclipse in a week's time. That has an important transit that you really need to look out for with that Venus opposition Neptune as we get to whatever date I mentioned, November 8th or 9th. What did I say? What did he say? Goodness. November 3rd, forgive me, November 3rd. November 8th is when Venus enters Libra, is when Virgo season ends technically for me. But a certain aspect of the sign of Virgo, and if you want to consider, remains alive till December 22nd. And certainly till December 10th, till December 15th. You have got to be still while all these, I am telling you, I'm willing to put money on this. It's going to be true. Where does Virgo sit in your chart? What sign, what house does it occupy? What does that house stand for? How's the Venus transit supporting the Taurus and the Capricorn part of the chart? How is it serving to, how has it served and does it continue to serve Saturn and Pisces? And how is it serving, you can say that, Neptune's transit in Pisces, either by assisting in artistic or creative or spiritual activities, but also insofar as it is preventing loss and deception. And finally, what is it that you're trying to do and build in the Virgo part of your chart that is reliant on Mercury? Technology, communications, transactions, social media, commuting, sales, interviews, talking, thinking, cognition, learning, teaching. What is it that you're trying to do in the Virgo part of your chart and build? That continues through December. December 22nd is when that ends. The next video I'm going to do is going to focus and look more holistically on the Libra transits that are remaining. And not, essentially what is left remaining in the Libra part of the chart is the fact that we have the Libra eclipse. We're currently in the Libra new moon till the Scorpio new moon on November 14th or so, 12th to 14th, whenever that is, I'll look it up. And finally, Venus comes into Libra on the 8th. And the planets from the sign of Libra, of course, oppose Chiron in Aries, conjunct the South Node, square Pluto in Capricorn. The lovely thing is, as the planets move into Scorpio, they trine Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, finally. But they oppose Jupiter and Uranus in Taurus. I told you that the second half of this year is just, when we had Venus retrograde, Mercury retrograde, the eclipses, wow. It's exciting, part of the excitement is where do you want to go and what do you want to build. But keep the opportunities related to Venus's transit in Virgo in mind, because there's a lot that is active and is trying to be created when it comes to the Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus parts of our chart supporting each other, and there being growth and transformation in the Capricorn and the Taurus part of our chart. But keep an eye out on November 3rd as you head to that. And this next week may see you availing of opportunities and seeing some blessing and seeing the potential for finances and relationship opportunities come in, but may also see you drawing a line to ensure that as you head to November 3rd, that no one picks your pocket. And the pocket that you need to protect is what Venus is trying to bring in the Virgo part of your chart, to be specific. And of course, finally, don't lose sight of what you're trying to build in the Virgo part of your chart using Mercury. And be in implementation mode during the month of November on that. From now till December 10th, be in implementation mode. Finish what needs to be implemented and start to see the results and start to refine those results. If you found this video useful, feel free to share, tell your friends about it, whatever, get the word out. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, click the bell icon next to subscribe, the wiggly bell on top, so that you're notified whenever I do new videos. Feel free to like the video, comment on it if you feel like it gives it more circulation. And if you find this video useful, then it can reach more people. And as I said, 2 more videos before we talk about the eclipse. I've already started. Honestly, these videos we're talking about the eclipse. Let's face it, also. Ultimately, they're serving the eclipse that is coming up. All right, friends. Until the next video.